So, Namaskaram and welcome to all of the people watching. We're here together with a very special guest, and I'd like to allow him to introduce himself. Please go ahead, take it away.
Namaskaram. Thank you for inviting me, Francisco. So my name is Varun. I'm also a Hatha Yoga teacher, trained with the Sadhguru Gurukulam, 2017 batch. So basically, that's about it. Though technically I'm supposed to be a classical Hatha Yoga teacher, but more so I would say that I am just someone who's trying to understand this piece of life, just like anybody else, and found a certain path in which makes it a concrete way of figuring out things and figuring out this one mechanism that we call as human being. So yeah, that's pretty much basically who I am, I guess.
For those who just stumbled upon this channel, and I forgot to introduce myself also, I'm Francesco Morelli. I'm also a classical Hatha yoga teacher trained by Sadhguru Gurukulam from the 2013 batch. And I presently live in Hyderabad, and that's where I spend most of the year, except for on average twice yearly, where I spend some time in my home country of Italy and I teach there as well. So yeah, Varun is an old friend of mine, and we've had the opportunity on a few occasions to actually also work together as teachers. And I'm very thrilled that this is the first English language podcast. I hope the first of many that I'll be hosting. And yeah, so he already took you guys on a bird's view panorama of pretty much most of the topics I want to go through. So let's break it down step by step for our viewers so they can get to know you better. And I'm sure I'll also learn a bunch of new things. So where did your interest in yoga actually originate from? Was it a specific event? Was it a series of events? Or you had any particular need or curiosity you wanted to satisfy? Can you walk us through that journey?
If I have to be, it goes actually quite a long time back, so I'm not sure where to start. But yeah, it's like since young, there have been certain moments, I do not know how to say this, when I was young and all, where there were certain moments where I had sudden moment, for lack of words, of awareness, something wherein all of a sudden, I mean, this I'm talking about when I was really young. I can quote two incidents. So one was probably, actually, I was I was a baby, a toddler, and I remember this clearly. There was a moment where I still couldn't speak at that time. I was just like a really, I don't know, maybe a few months old kind of toddler. I was on the bed, and at this moment, it's clearly it's etched in my consciousness in a certain way, for lack of words. So my mom took a picture of me. This is a very famous family picture, actually. There's a baby picture of mine. So my mom took a picture of me, and in that moment, for some reason, when the flash happened, suddenly I had a moment of absolute awareness. I don't know how to describe it. I just was very conscious when that happened, and that was one. But basically, because still, like, I have not developed the faculties of articulating stuff. I was still a toddler, right? So it was just a moment like that. Like that, I've had 3-4 moments. Like one more moment was probably, I remember when I was in high school. I used to be good in debate competitions at that time in my high school days. So there was this particular competition that my school sent me to represent them for a particular debate competition. My parents are also in the audience. So it was my turn, and I was telling my piece or whatever the topic was, giving my, it's for and against. I forgot whether I was for or against for some topic. I forgot the topic. But while speaking on the topic, suddenly again, all of a sudden, I had this moment of awareness where I suddenly became really conscious. And all of a sudden, I stopped talking. All of a sudden, it was strange. All of a sudden, it's like my personality just withdrew. And all of a sudden, there was nothing. And I was just there. And I couldn't understand what it was. But that by that time, I had developed the faculties to articulate within, right? So that moment made me kind of understand what the hell happened. All of a sudden, I just couldn't understand what happened. And this is one part. At the same time, during this time, I also developed a certain, for lack of words, obsession about death. I was always wondering what death was about. And this was a constant thing throughout my childhood, where I would just, sit and visualize, just sit and close my eyes and try to be like, okay, if today I die or if Varun disappears, what is there? I just couldn't understand this concept, like what happens if Varun is not there? What is this? So this kept pricking me. But as I grew older and older, more impressions that I started gathering, right? So a personality also developed. And when this personality got developed, these questions kind of receded. So once these questions got went into the background, regular stuff started happening, teenage hormones, all these kind of things, regular things started happening. But the questions were there still in the background. But it was again completely not in the prime focus as how it was in my childhood. Then probably a few things happened over a period of time, which I'm pretty sure will come out now when through our discussion. And when this came out, there was no concept of yoga in my head. I did not think about going for some yoga program or what is yoga or anything. But when certain things again happened, this question of death again came back, where they had a moment of crisis where I was just wondering. Again, these questions came up: what is death? And this naturally led to the question of what does it mean to be alive, or what is this? What is this existence about? Those kind of existential questions started happening, and that is when I came across Sadhguru, who kind of came into my life in a certain way, and he got me, or he spoke about the concept of yoga. Till then, in my head, yoga was about stretching or another fitness regime. Like people go to gym, some people go to yoga classes to get more fit. But then when he spoke about yoga, that is when first I realized that yoga is not something about just becoming more fit or more flexible. It was something much deeper. So that is when I guess first time when I actually thought about yoga in a very different way, and yeah, got into yoga probably in that way.
And once you tasted the first Isha practice, or maybe I don't know if you went through other forms or styles of yoga as well, what eventually made you kind of decide like, okay, I think I'll focus or I'll plant my flag right here at the Isha Yoga
Right.
Center?
Actually, I had no prior experience of any other yoga programs, nothing. I was not at all interested. Probably I could say that I was allergic to gurus, actually, because of the way I was brought up, and also being educated in Bangalore, which is a very westernized way of going about it. So generally had a certain allergy towards gurus and everything. No prior experience in any kind of yogic methods or other kind of yoga practices. Like I said, when I reached that moment of some kind of a crisis, I mean, the crisis is the wrong word, where I reached a moment where, there was a need to understand what this is about. And when Sadhguru came in my life, I felt this was the most natural thing to do. I did not know how to go about it. Then he talked about the inner engineering program in one of the videos. I did not know what is this inner engineering, nothing. I just wanted to learn, okay, whatever he said made sense, and whatever he said he was offering, I was like, okay, fine, let me try it out. And I went for the inner engineering program. Still remember, October 2015. So that is when I joined my first Isha program, which was the inner engineering program. And in terms of experience, I think life-changing moment. I know the cliche dialogue everybody says in Isha is there is a life before inner engineering and after inner engineering, but it's so true for all of us. I'm pretty sure for you or many others that there is a person who was before inner engineering and a person that becomes or is becoming in the process of becoming something else after inner engineering. So that really happened after initiation day. I just remember it was such a beautiful experience, a profound experience, that I just came home after the Sunday initiation, went to my mom, and I just remember telling her, like, I think something has shifted within me. She couldn't understand, but even she could make out, like, okay, there's something that has happened to my son, because after I did all this program, even she got in because she saw that something has fundamentally changed within me. So the same thing she also saw, and she never questioned it. she could see that there is something. Maybe she did not know. She thought maybe it's a small face or something at that time. But something had changed within me. I couldn't just put a finger on it, what it was, but something definitely had shifted. And then I knew, okay, this is where I belong.
In terms of deciding for the teacher training, was there a specific point in time, like you had done a certain number of programs, or you felt like, okay, all other professional activities don't make as much sense as this choice? And also, why did you settle for the Isha Hatha Yoga Teacher training instead of any other one, in case you explored other ones as well?
Same thing. Like I said, once I did inner engineering, I knew this is where I belong. So it didn't occur to me actually to explore anything else. So how did Hatha Yoga Teacher training happen? That is an interesting question, because by nature, I'm actually a very lazy person. So the last thing that I wanted to do was Hatha Yoga Teacher training, because after I did my inner engineering, I became a regular volunteer. I also became one of the core team of my center in Bangalore. The closest center where I stay is called Jayanagar. So in Jayanagar center, I became a core volunteer actually at that time. So the last thing that I actually wanted to do was Hatha Yoga Teacher training. The last thing in my head. And actually, there was even a couple of inner engineering teachers who actually told me, why don't you do Ishanga training? And I was like, maybe. Or at least Satsang Ishanga. I remember one of the teachers saying, at least you take the first step to do Satsang Ishanga training. I was like, maybe. But I remember there was Hatha Yoga Teacher training brochures kept in the center. And I just used to look at it, but just keep it aside. I'm like, this is definitely not something I'm going to do, because by nature I'm lazy. I'm like, I don't mind volunteering. I don't mind doing my practices. But doing like Hatha Yoga for 7 hours a day and all these kind of things, I was like, definitely not for me. So then it was 2017. So to answer the question, yes, when I did my inner engineering, it became like a roller coaster. I started doing everything. So October 2015, I did my inner engineering. Then December did Spandana. Then Feb 2016, I did my Shunya. So it became one after the other. And November 2015, I did my Hatha Yoga also. So I covered all the programs. And then actually wanted to do Samyam. That was happening in 2016. And then one of the teachers, very few teachers actually tell this. I don't know what to name the teacher, but it was very wonderful advice that they gave me. So when I said I wanted to do Samyama, he told me, normally teachers say, oh, go fine, go ahead and do it. But he was wise enough to tell me that, please slow down. This is not how to go about it. Slow down as in, he was very happy that I did all my programs. It was very nice. And he's like, yeah, go for it. But for Samyama, he just told me that prepare for some more time. Because I just finished Feb, my Shunya, and I think March or something like that was the Samyama. He just told me, do little more Shakti Chana Kriya and the Shunya practice for at least a few more months. So he said, go do it next year so that the system is more stable. I think the best piece of advice that Nishang has given me is that. So I was like, okay, fine. So then that year I was volunteering like crazy. Every inner engineering program, it was like a festival for me. I just kept on volunteering. I thought this is my way, just like volunteer. I didn't want to be a teacher, actually. I felt like, okay, standing there as a teacher, and when they're talking about certain things, which is not yet in my awareness, I'm like, that's not something I can do. I can be in the background. You tell me, okay, do this. It's nice. It's fine to do it. It's fun also to do it. And I was young also then. So like, that energy was there. Then in 2017, what happened was I finished my master's, and then I was like, what the hell do I do with my life right now? And going into a corporate company did not make sense at all. And then I remember I'd gone for this interview for one company, and I just sat in the hall waiting for my interview to start or to be called for me for the interview. And then I just saw the people around me. I just finished my Shambhavi and I had gone to the interview. And I just saw the people around me. They were also depressed. And they were all, I won't say depressed, they were also like agitated. And they all seemed like they really want to get this done, but none of them was joyful. No one was really happy. Or I would say no one even knew what they're doing there. They just wanted to get into the machine of corporate, just because someone told them to do. And I just looked around and I'm like, I just told myself, is this the place that you want to work in? There is no joy here, And I just closed my eyes and a clear answer came, no ways. This is not where I want to spend my life in, Then I was like, okay, fine. I just came out of the interview. Actually, my name is also called. I'm like, sorry, I don't want to be part of this. And I just came out. And while riding back home, I got a message just said that Sadhguru was actually looking for full-time volunteers in 2017, that time. So normally that time the procedure to become full-time volunteers was you go to the ashram and actually volunteer for some time. And then after volunteering for a period of time, then they will see whether they can give you an opportunity to become, now they call it Purnanga, that time it's called as full-time volunteering or long-term volunteering, those kind of things. But that time it was there that Sadhgurus, those who are interested, they will become directly long-term or full-time volunteers. They have to go through a 1 week of orientation, but they could become directly long-term volunteers. And then I was like, okay, this is something that I wanted to do. I went and told my parents. So my mom, I think, was kind of like, okay, but my dad was like, what the hell? And he was like surprised that I wanted to go in this direction. But then what happened was he was not so happy. So when he was not that happy, I was also like, what the hell? Like, I was so confused whether I would to take this step, and that I did not feel like I want to work in the corporate. Then one of the teachers, I remember his name was Ankit from the 2016 batch. So I had met him in once I was volunteering for one of the inner engineering programs. I actually was speaking to him, and he had come for to volunteer at that time. He was actually one of the I was actually already volunteering quite some time. He had come for one of his initial volunteering days at that time. And then we just got talking, and he was saying like, I've actually registered for the teacher training program. And so I was like, okay, fine, cool, wonderful step. And then the conversation got over. I never met him again. So after, I think in 2017 again, so when I was walking in the Isha Yoga Center, I saw Ankit. And when I saw Ankit, he was glowing. Something about him had changed. And I was like, wow, this is what I want. Like, I saw something like, because I saw him that time. And with the way he was walking in Isha Yoga Center, I was like, dude, something has happened to this guy. I just went to Ankit and I just told him like, Ankit, you're just glowing. That's I think the first word I said. Like, I just went up to him like, Ankit, you're glowing. He just looked at me, and remember the first line he told me was, he's like, Anna, you're doing the Hatha Yoga teacher training this year. I was like, what? Whatever. I'm like, in my head, I was like, this is the last thing I ever wanted to do. And he's also saying, do it this year. That means in 2 months' time, I think the program is going to start. I'm like, that's definitely not going to happen. But in his own way, just like Christopher Nolan's movie Inception, right? So that thought was put in by Ankit. And it had gone into my, So slowly and slowly it worked itself to the subconscious, whatever you want to call it, layers of mind or whatever. That's like the Inception movie. Just put one thought and it was getting, that seed was just growing. Then I was like, Hatha Yoga teacher training. From no ways to, maybe, what is this? Let's see. Then coming back to the situation when I told my parents that I want to be full-time and all, and this little bit of, I won't say, a little small conflict that happened at home. And then my mom comes up to me one day and she says that, do you want to do Hatha Yoga teacher training? I had never told her I want to do it. And like I said, that this is not something that I actually wanted to do. I was like, what? Wow. Okay, someone has told me. And she said, don't worry, because she saw it in me. She told me later on, I asked, what made you tell me this? She said, I saw you already being fully committed in this path. And I knew that doing some corporate job is not going to be something that is going to be in your line, and it's not something that you will enjoy. So she saw me actually being very joyful in whatever I was doing. So she's like, why don't you do this? And okay, it's like it's like one step in where you are having some kind of career. This is something like that. But at the same time, you're fully involved with Sadhguru's vision. And she said, if you want, I'll sponsor you. I just bowed down to her. I just held Namaskaram. And I was like, if you do this, this will be probably the greatest gift that you can give your son. I would become eternally grateful if you could do this. And 2 months later, I found myself in Hatha Yoga teacher training. So it happened very rapidly. I don't know how it happened. And then 2 months later, I was sitting in Adiyogi LM. I'm like, dude, how the hell did I get here?
That's really, really nice to listen to this whole story. Not just a story, it really happened. And in terms of the practices, do you have any favorite practice, or is it a terrible question to ask?
Okay, this is, I don't know, maybe could be surprising to many people. I do have a favorite, and my favorite, in terms of Hatha Yoga you're asking, right? Or in terms of any practice?
Both ways you can answer. In terms of Hatha Yoga and in terms overall.
Okay, Hatha Yoga, my favorite practice is by far Bhuta Shuddhi. I'm not sure why, because when I do Bhuta Shuddhi, I don't know, once it finishes, I just feel like there's a certain state of, what do you say, of distance between me and my mind, and me and my personality more than mind, where there is a certain sense of emptiness that I feel. There's a certain sense of aloneness, not loneliness, aloneness that I feel, where it's just beautiful. So Bhuti Shuddhi by far my favorite practice in the Hatha Yoga, this thing. And overall my favorite practice definitely is Shambhavi Mahamudra. One thing is maybe a certain love for it because that was the turning point in my life. But no, actually, the turning point would be the moment I actually saw Sadhguru. That is different. That was way before Shambhavi Mahamudra. But as a practice, that was a turning point. And also, Shambhavi Mahamudra gives you a certain sense of ecstasy within, as a tinge of ecstasy and blissfulness. And that's too good to I mean, that's too good for someone to be saying that this is not something that one needs because it's so good that I completely love that sense of blissfulness and a tinge of ecstasy that one gets when you do Shambhavi Mahamudra. So that's my all-time favorite practice among all the practices that we learn. And Hatha Yoga, I would say, okay, number one would be Shambhavi Mahamudra, two would be Bhuta Shuddhi.
Any bronze medalist, or the podium only has 2 steps?
Guru Puja, definitely Guru Puja. Third, I won't say third. That's actually pretty interesting because I don't look Guru Puja as like a practice. Others, I look at it as a practice. That is something that you do. I can't look at Guru Puja as a practice. Otherwise, as a practice, okay, bronze could be Surya Kriya, I guess.
Awesome. And in terms of teaching your classes and fulfillment that comes with teaching, does any transformation of your students stand out in your mind? Some of the feedback you received that just blew your mind and is worth all the people saying no and all the people doubting or saying, what is this? Would you mind sharing some student results, so to speak?
So I think the best, I think the most satisfying, it's tough to call it results. Okay, the most satisfying thing to hear from my experience as a teacher would be that some of the students, when they say that after seeing how the class was done or was conducted, it's a little embarrassing to say because after seeing your class or something like that, because I just feel that once you're in the class, I'm pretty sure you also could connect with this. Is something else takes over, right? Like you're just like a conduit. Sometimes it's just like you just sit there and something else just makes the class happen. But the best feedback probably would be a few of the teachers who actually were my participants, who said that after being in your class, I decided to take up the step to become teacher training. So, I mean, I think that's the best, the most beautiful thing that you can hear is that because of one class that the particular teacher or teachers actually decided to take such a, I wouldn't say a small step, it's like a really big step of spending 21 weeks and committing themselves in that kind of setup. I think, I think that's the best thing that I could hear as a teacher, that, okay, damn, like I was part of something where one person has actually decided to do the teacher training after being in one of the classes. I think, that's the best and the most beautiful thing. More than I have heard, like many participants do come and they'll be like, I've had this experience, that experience, this was like this, like that. All these are fine. Because experiences come and go. Like you could be having a really high experience one day and the next day you're the same person. But creating such a difference in a person's life where they actually decide to take a step in creating a lifestyle of sadhana around them, where it's a constant growth. I think that's the most beautiful thing to hear, where it's not about the experience, it's about creating a stable platform on which they can actually grow or blossom into a beautiful human being, not about having this experience or that experience. So there's few teachers who told me this. I think that has been one of the most fulfilling things that I've heard.
What I often find, and maybe it's the case with you as well, many people are so hesitant in their approach to yoga. Could be for cultural reasons, religious reasons, or because they have some preconceived notions about what yoga is or isn't. So, what are some of the obstacles that you see? So, some people watching this may or may not have done any yoga practices. They may know either you or me or somebody recommended them this video. So, if that person is watching with a sense of hesitation, like when is the good time to start, or um, with what frame of mind should I start? Can you mention maybe some instances where you helped people debunk some preconceived notions about yoga, or what is the fastest way to get rid of those preconceived notions and just take a step into the unknown, which is not that unknown because after all we're talking about all the science for well-being in the world. So
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the last part. All the
I mean, it's after all, it's not that unknown because we're still talking about the oldest science for well-being in the whole world. So it's not that unknown.
yeah.
People think it's unknown
Yeah.
and mystical and scary, but maybe it isn't.
Yeah, true. So this is a very tough question. You put me on the spot here. Actually, I don't think there's any right answer for this. I think even we learn how to handle such situations every day. Trying to there have been situations where I've been a little over enthusiastic in trying to debunk certain things with certain people, and it's actually gone the other way. And then you learn, okay, maybe don't go about it that way. Maybe you have to take a softer approach, a little more. For example, one thing is with respect to I'll come to that question, but like, for example, initially just going like, oh, Sadhguru is this, Sadhguru is that, then I understood that is not the way to go about it. And when I just told, I remember one person that see, he's a person who has figured it out. He's like a mechanic who's figured it out. And then you go to a person to understand what this is about. You go to a mechanic to understand or to figure this thing out. When I approached it like that, when I said things about Sadhguru in that way, then he was open to yoga in a certain way. So this is, I think, a learning always, like I do not know what is the exact thing to say actually even now, but I think a little more every time when someone asks, refining yourself. But I think one of the biggest thing is, like you said, one thing is there are two things, I guess. One thing is certain sect of people see yoga as as an exercise, just for fitness. For such kind of people, I would always be like, you can do other things for fitness because there are better things. Like, for example, doing swimming or doing a trek up the mountains. I think you'll be far more fit than doing any of the yoga practices. So doing yoga for fitness, I am not something that I can agree with. I know we have practices like Angamardana or even Kalari and all, but I still feel like there are far better methods out there for you to be really fit than yoga. Using yoga for fitness is like how Sadhguru puts it, using an aeroplane to ride on the road, or drive on the road. It's like that. So that is something that I try to make people understand, that yoga is not for that. It's for a much deeper reasons. But with respect to, like you said, many also people think about yoga is not for them because one thing is they feel that it's about many restrictions, not having this, not having that, being a little disciplined, and not having freedom in their lives and those kind of things. So I guess for them, it's telling them that actually yoga is about absolute freedom, actually about experiencing real freedom within, where you're actually. So basically, real freedom within means you have accumulated over a period of time and you build this personality, right, from various things. And only when you have a certain distance between you and the personality, you have absolute freedom and you can actually say that this is what needs to be done, instead of being a slave of compulsions, where you just do what you like and don't do what you don't like, and just be within the framework of likes and dislikes. I think creating a certain distance between you and personality actually gives you the freedom to do actually what is needed most joyfully, most blissfully. And I think every human being at the end of the day wants to be just pleasant. And this is a tool for you to be pleasant. So yoga is just a tool for some person to be pleasant, And also, like you said, many people think yoga is all this mystical. It's all for these certain kinds of people, all this thing, and or even maybe for some people, it's like, oh, this is all like enlightenment. All this is all bunkam, and this is all nonsense, and all these kind of things. Like you said, this is also something that needs to be understood, that yoga is not something about this or that, like enlightenment, something mystical, something this or that. I mean, these are just words, right? At the end of the day, we do not know what all these words mean. Basically, words do not describe a human being's experience. It's like, for example, if a blind person asks you what color is, you cannot explain that to him, because it's something that cannot be explained with words. You can only point in a certain direction. So all these words, these big words, it doesn't matter at all, because it doesn't mean anything. All that one person can know is, okay, this is this is where I am right now. How do I expand this human being into a better possibility, a better possibility, and a better possibility? What is the end of this possibility? There's no end. Why should one keep an end? Just be the best version of yourself. This human being, what is the best version that it can be? Just keep expanding. And yoga is a beautiful tool to do all that. Then all these words don't matter. Mukti, liberation. I know these are all words that are used, but I'm just saying that many people may be getting caught up in words rather than just, trying to simplify it and trying to cut down all the nonsense within, all the jargon within, and just experiencing life for the way it is. And I think yoga is a beautiful way where there is no philosophy, there is no any kind of outside jargon. It is just a method, a step-by-step method for one person to implement things and see if it works for them. If it works for them, keep it. If it doesn't work for you, you keep it away. I mean, that's a most beautiful system, right? Every other way out there is like, it's my way or the highway. Here it's not like that. You experiment with it. If it works for you, keep it. If it doesn't work for you, then drop it. Well, it's worked for millions of people and it has been there for thousands of years. So definitely it works. So just try it out. If it works for you, keep it. Otherwise, you can move ahead, drop it and go and do something else. So I think that's why yoga is so beautiful, where it does not follow any dogma, no ideology, no belief system, just about addressing who you are and how this human being can expand itself.
When you're sitting in the class, did you have any particular moments where you felt, since you're mentioning expansion, this is a nice segue, maybe did you feel yourself in a kind of moment of expansion, or like you have a particular experience during a class, maybe because you see people in front of you so incredibly involved and engaged, or they're going through something and you have no idea, bewildered, what's happening with these people, or just you feel maybe a lack of barrier between you and the other person, there's no clear distinction, or whichever way it happens for you. Would you mind trying to, though it's difficult maybe to put in words, can you narrate maybe one such experience that you had while teaching?
Interesting question. Or in some way, I could also say that a moment where there was no barrier between the participant and me. Is that something that I'm trying to get from you? Is that something that you're asking?
Yeah, for example.
Something like that. Yeah.
It can
so
be.
There have been.
It can be anything, or also just a moment of overwhelming love and connection and oneness. It could go in so many ways, whichever is true with you.
Got it. So yeah, definitely. I also remember when I was doing the training, there was one thing that one Prashant Anna, who is one of the for people who do not know. So when we do the training, Prashant Anna is one of the main people who actually train the teachers. So when I did the training, he was one of the main teachers who was actually training us to become teachers. So he said one line which I remember. I forgot whether it was in just a casual comment or whether it was part of one of the mock classes that we do. So he did say that when he finishes a class, there's a certain sense of emptiness that he feels within. I was not, when he told me this actually caught my attention, and I was like, what does he mean by that? And again, the problem, or at least my problem is, I have this idiotic intellect that tries to keep understanding what something is, what emptiness is, and this and that. Like I said, jargon. So only when actually this jargon is like kept at a distance is only when I feel that sense of expansiveness. But every now and then this intellect again comes in and tries to ruin the party. So when he said this, I was like, okay, what does Prashantana mean by this? And actually, I remember when I would say many classes, but especially Bhuta Shuddhi classes, where there have been moments where I'm just sitting and all of a sudden, like I said, I think the best way that I can explain this is my personality goes away completely. There is no Varun sitting there. And in that sense, there is no class, or there is no like me and the participant. It's just like, I mean, I do not know how to describe this, because there are no words there to be described. You know, and at that moment, there is no jargon, no words. So I do not even know how to say this is it, because there is no this is it in that moment. And it is just there. You know, it is. That's all. And it is very beautiful. Again, beautiful is the wrong word to use, because again, when you say all these words, they are actually trying to keep it in a certain boundary, right? Like when you say beautiful, it is within a boundary. Okay, beautiful means people think, okay, this is beautiful, this is not beautiful. It's not like that. It's just like indescribable, I guess. But unfortunately, we have to use words to describe it. But yeah, I guess the best word would be where the personality just goes away. And there is just a sense of just being there. That's all. Nothing else but there. So where, yes, there have been certain moments where it has happened because of just being in the class or being in a certain way, has happened because a particular class went in a certain way, maybe a Buddha Shuddhi class which had happened in a certain way. And also, like you said, sometimes it might happen seeing a volunteer, participant, okay, you can also call them volunteers because they're volunteering to expand themselves, right? So where they experience something, and just looking at how something is transforming them can also bring about that kind of experience within. I would say one beautiful experience would be, I was teaching in this orphanage. Sorry, take that back. Not an was it? Okay, it was actually, I think, an orphanage run. It was aided. It was like an NGO conducting. There were kids from very underprivileged backgrounds, and I was taking a class for them. Naturally, they approached. They had actually approached Ankit, and then Ankit, and this was to be conducted in Kannada because it was for underprivileged in Bengaluru region. So naturally, because I was a little better, well versed, and also I think he was busy for a couple of days. He asked me, could I take it up? And I went, and I said, okay, fine. And these are like wild kids. These are not like the kind of domesticated kids that you see in these well-educated schools like CBSC or these kind of things. They are wild kids because of their circumstances or whatever, but wild, but beautiful in their own way, but wild. But in this class, there was this one girl. I was teaching them Surya Shakti to the best of my ability. There was this one girl. She was so, I can't describe it. It's still so beautiful, so receptive. Maybe she was 7, 8 years of age or something, but every word that I said, every instruction that I gave, all the others were naughty, doing this and that, but she was absolutely unwavering for some reason, and she just did what was asked, and you could see her complete involvement. And seeing that kid with such involvement, I almost had tears in my eyes. I had to really hold it back because I was sitting there as a teacher and I didn't want to take down there. But that was so beautiful to see. And I just within me just had to bow down to that. I still bow down to that. I don't know whether hopefully she kept it up. But at that moment when I saw her, I was like, wow, this is something else. This can't be described. And seeing that involvement also. So one moment when I talked about was a break from personality. I think this moment is where you just surrender to something that is so beautiful. You just have to bow down to that. So yeah, this is one of those real beautiful incidents where I just had to bow down. She might be 7, 8 years of age, but to me, she was above all that. At that moment, she was like far greater than anything else.
What are some really exceptional places where you have done your sadhana? It can be in a different country or in a particular locality or in the outdoor, whatever comes to mind, airport, beach, I don't know.
Maybe I would say outdoors could be whenever I do the treks, right? Sometimes every year I try to go at least on one trek in the Himalayas. So when we do this trek, no matter what, I always keep up my sadhana. As in, of course, you can't do everything, but Shakti Chunakre Shambhavi has to happen. So after a top day of trek, when everybody sleeps, right? No matter what, get up at, suppose we have to start at 6 o'clock. Okay, you time it and you'll be like 4:30, you'll have to get up. So in the mountains, in the middle of nowhere. Then just getting up at 4:30, and though it's shivering, you just make sure that you do your Shakti Chana Kriya. And when you do Kaka Kriya, I'm not sure if your audience will be aware of this, but it's a particular time where it's so famous among our Isha meditators, where we do a particular sound. And because in the trek, it's all kinds of people, right? It's not like you're only with meditators. It's all kinds of people you meet from all backgrounds, all over India, or sometimes even people from outside. And there'll be also, I remember in this one trek, till the last day, there was another teacher also with me. Both of us were sharing this tent, and we both of us were naturally doing our Shakti Chana Kriya. And till the last, or I think the third or fourth day, till we revealed that we are actually doing some practice early in the morning, they thought, which is this weird bird or some animal that is actually waking them up. And they're like, okay, fine, something is waking us up, but what is this weird animal every day, waking us up? So that is some interesting times where you're around people and they do not know what you're doing, and still keeping up the sadhana. So maybe in the mountains. And one thing that I've seen is when we do this, and they are always at the end of many of them come back and they'll be like, it's not about doing the practice. They're just admiring the commitment that we have towards the practice, that no matter what the situation is or wherever you are or how difficult the situation is, you guys just want to do that. So seeing that commitment itself, many of them will like, maybe I should give it a shot, or maybe I should try this. So yeah, doing it in the mountains has been one of those real extreme places that I've done sadhana, I guess. And mountains doesn't mean like in tea houses or, in viewpoints, something like that. Like, real trek deep into the mountains, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and doing Shakti Chana Kriya. Oh, one thing is pure mountain air. When you do Shakti Chana Kriya with that pure mountain air, or it's something else. It's a different high altogether. Other interesting places, maybe just here and there, like wherever you are. Sometimes you're in trains, you traveling to maybe ashram or someplace, and just do your sadhana there, and then open your eyes, and there's a curious onlooker like looking at you, and they'll be like, okay, what the hell did you do just now? And then you get into a conversation, and you just speak what you have to speak. Other than that, outside, yeah, there's like this, I think, while traveling, sometimes wherever, there is no particular. I think you will relate to this as once we get into this, we don't see where or what is the situation. Wherever sometimes we have to do our sadhana, we just do it. So whether it's train, buses, mountains, beach. Remember you recently doing it there, beautiful spot. So yeah, all these places that you mentioned, I guess all of us would have done a sadhana in these regions, I guess. No crazy places though. Not like, I don't know if you remember, I remember Swami Ulasa during our training saying that he did it in the airport restroom or something like that. In the toilet, like he put the thing down and did Shakti Chana Kriya or something. So I think I have nothing wild like that, I guess. That was like, wow. That is something maybe that's a real commitment.
Yeah, I think any bathroom would, especially in a public place, would probably be my the last at the very last spot of my list. When you started teaching or right now, do you have any specific goals for teaching? Like, for example, are you trying to reach X number of people within a certain number of years, or do you want to be active a certain amount of days in a week in terms of teaching, or you don't go by numbers at all and you try to go where the wind blows or where you feel the rhythm of life is taking you in that particular phase of your life?
I think the third thing that you said, I definitely, I will always been like this, never going after some kind of goal or some kind of numbers or this or that. Just like how the wind blows, just go in that direction. Or in a way, it's like, I do not know how to say it. I just, I think this is also the thing is, the way my life is set up right now, it's in a way, in such a way that I can do this as a complete offering. I do not have to think much about my finances, because one thing is I do not plan to have any kind of legacy behind. That means I do not plan to have kids and those kind of things. And also to being in today's world, the education system that we have, the money that is required, it's like crazy, right? So because I do not have such burden, pretty sure you know about this. because I do not have any such burden as such. I mean, again, this is something that I want to say. This is not whatever I am saying is in my way of looking at things. It's something that is not necessary that another person should think of as being judgmental, because everybody wants to grow in their own way, and every way that a person grows is beautiful. This is just that for me it's like this, that because I do not have such burdens, I want my setup in such a, or even my parents, they're not financially dependent on me for now, and these kind of things are basically the setup is in such a way that there's not much financial burden on me at this moment, and I can do this as a way of just offering, and whatever comes to me I can just fold my hands and receive it. uh, because of this, I can create the setup wherein I want it to be like tomorrow you have to drop the whole thing, in a way it's an act. I know basically, yes, I'm a classical Hatha Yoga teacher with the Sadhguru Gurukulam is the main tagline that we go by. We're introducing ourselves maybe in classes or people who we want to teach and all. But to me, it's just an identity, an act that I'm playing, because the whole thing is I am in the same boat as everybody else, even as a part. There's no difference between the participant and me, in the sense that we are all here to grow. Like there's one volunteer who puts a name tag. There's one volunteer who sits here and gives instructions. There's no difference between the volunteer who's helping out with me in the class and me. We are all in the same thing. And the participant who's taking the class, because he's also taking one step towards his own inner well-being. So there is no difference between any of us, because for all of us, it's just a tool for us to grow and take the next step. So in that sense, I do not actually look at myself as some kind of, I actually don't look at myself as anything. That's something that I can never understand, how to identify myself as something. I could never do that. Maybe that's another reason why I got into the spiritual path, is I could never identify myself with anything. I'm like, okay, that is the question where who am I comes in. So because of this, I can create the setup wherein if I want to drop everything tomorrow, I can just drop it and do whatever needs to be. Like, for example, tomorrow there is some kind of movement or some kind of sadhana that is set up that requires my commitment there to be for a certain amount of months, or simply I just want to take a break or do something. I want my setup to be in such a way that I can just drop it and go do that. It's not like I want to be classical Hatha Yoga teacher throughout my life or anything. It is just that this moment, in this situation, for some reason, life has put me in this, and I'll give it my all. Whether tomorrow I'm going to be in the same situation, definitely who knows? Maybe life wants me to go somewhere else and just then take that route. So never goal-oriented. And it's also like I want to be a classical Hatha Yoga teacher for this amount of time, or I want to reach this amount of people. As an individual, I would like to reach as many people as possible. But it need not be just in the setup of being a classical Hatha Yoga teacher. Just as a person, like maybe just sitting and having, like I said, maybe you just do Shambhavi in the train, and then you open your eyes and there's a person curious. That's a beautiful opportunity when he's really curious and you're having this conversation. That conversation could be his turning point. So I don't actually look at myself as a classical Hatha Yoga teacher who needs to do this, this, and this. It is just like every day. That's a tool for me to grow myself on a regular basis. But of course, that may not be the only way. It could be many ways. So I do not want to take my classical Hatha Yoga teacher and make it my identity. I don't want that to become my identity. For the outside world, it's fine. But for within me, I'm just a piece of life.
Are you active in any other areas, like professionally, or do you have any or do you have any particular hobbies that you dedicate some time to in your day-to-day?
I mean, basically, I don't do anything else other in terms of career-wise or in terms of what I do in my life. Yes, it's a tough question, Like sometimes when people ask what you do, I'll be like, I'm technically a classical Hatha Yoga teacher trained in Sadhguru Gurukulam, which I'm completely, what's the right word? Which I'm completely proud of. Maybe, or more than that, which I completely bow down to the very fact that I've had this opportunity. But at the same time, I say this: I'm technically this, but actually, I do not know how to say this. We have to be frank. I actually see myself as doing nothing. I don't do anything in my life. I'm just like a guy who's, I think, chilling in life, here and there I take classes, here and there I go to ashram, do some volunteering, maybe to go to local center volunteering, go there or do some kind of trip, or go to some trek. But basically, actually, I'm doing nothing. I'm not doing anything. That's how it feels. So, hobbies wise, like I definitely, I'm a huge movie freak. Love watching movies, but I'm not like the kind of person who likes any kind of movies. Though I'm a movie freak, it's not like I watch movies continuously. I'm very particular about the movies that I watch. Very, very particular about the directors whose movies I watch. I'm more of a, I look more at the director than the actor. I'm like, okay, who directed this movie? That's more important to me. And also TV series. So if the stories, I would say, yeah, I would say this is like a hobby, as in I've always been fascinated by stories since young. So this actually my grandfather put it in me, where when I was really young, he used to tell me, he was actually my first, I would say, spiritual inspiration, because he was a devotee of the great Indian saint Ramana Maharshi. So he was a great devotee of him, and I used to remember that he used to have his photo there. And there was something about him that I always liked, and I had a beautiful, a wonderful connection with my grandfather. And then I remember asking him, who is this old man? Because he always has Ramana Maharshi's photo there. I'm like, I was a very young guy. I was like, who's this old man? But he never scolded me or anything. That is the beautiful part, because then he was like, oh no, he's like a great Indian saint and so on, but never explained much and all. So there's that image of Ramana Maharshi was the first that went in. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by saint and all these kind of things, right? So he was actually a person who kept telling me all these stories. So I actually come from what is called as in the Indian system, a certain sect or a community called as the Tamil Brahmin community, where the stories of Mahabharata and Ramayana are very popular among, especially the older. I think the younger generation losing it, but the older generation always used to tell these stories, and it was a regular part of our lives. So he used to tell me all the stories of Mahabharata and Ramayana and all. So I used to always be fascinated by stories. So even today, any good story, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV series, whether it's a book, anything that has a good story, I'm definitely would love to be involved with it. And otherwise, I love music. So there was a period in my life. This was just before I got into Isha and everything. There's a certain period in my life where I was into a certain kind of music called as psytrance music. So I was actually planning to even become a psytrance DJ at one point of time. I even wanted to go to Goa and become a psytrance DJ and all. So yeah, that is, I even now today I love listening to music, especially this kind of music. And as I get more and more meditative, I love listening to Indian classical music. It's so good. If it's, I do not know the technicalities. Many times when I go to this classical music and all, people are doing this tala and they'll be like, wow, or they'll be like, oh, he did not hit the right note and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I do not know any of this, but when I close my eyes, it's so meditative. So Indian classical, yeah, some of them can be really beautiful. So I think be listening to music, wherever there's a story, just being involved with the story. I think these are some of the things that I love to do outside my teaching or yoga practices.
This actually brought back an interesting memory for me, that when I started practicing yoga, the first couple of years, maybe 1 or 2 years, I was still quite in a mood of going out, etc., in terms of partying. But whether it was a classical music concert, like Western classical music, or it was a pub or a disco, whatever the music, if I just wanted to be quiet, I would just sit with eyes closed and the music would just explode within me. This is something else. Anyhow, now we've.
So before that, on a side note, because this is something that I also wanted to start recently. Is I actually want to start listening to Western classical. So maybe after this podcast, you can give me some a list, because Indian classical music, yes, it's so. I'm pretty sure Western classical music also is very meditative in its own way. So and I think you also, I mentioned, I guess you do, or you what do you say? You do opera singing. I guess that's what you said, right? So probably after this, you can tell me some recommendations where certain Western classical music which I can start listening to, because I have no idea. So I think that's a good thing about not having any idea about anything, is because when you listen to it, you just enjoy it. not being bothered by the technical aspects of it.
Yes.
It's like as teachers we experience it, right? Like sometimes like a person who does Surya Kriya, he can be having the best of experience. Whereas as teachers, when you look at it, you're like, oh, this is not right, this is not in line, this is not in line, So when you know the technicalities of it, sometimes I think we lose the juice of it, But of course, we have to be the way or do the things that we have to do. But sometimes also in certain things, I think it's good not to have any knowledge so that you can just immerse yourself and enjoy it. Because when technicalities come in, we're like, okay, this is not like this, something like that.
For me also in teacher training, when we completed the first ever Surya Kriya, so this is somewhere in July or August 2013, I was stoned out of my mind. I never experienced Surya Kriya so profoundly ever again. But I'm sure I was doing it way worse than I'm doing it today. So just goes to prove your point that the bliss and ecstasy is maybe not always one-to-one connected to the perfection of execution.
Perfection. That's so true. Definitely.
So now we've come to the rapid fire round, drawing closer to the conclusion. So you mentioned there'll be a few open questions also, not only A or B. So starting with some of the last things you brought up, can you mention, since you hinted at your passion for movies, but then you left us hanging as a real cliffhanger, you left us hanging because now we still don't know who are your favorite directors. Would you mention like 2 or 3 of your favorite directors?
Yeah, so one definitely hands down, and is the most popular choice with many people, is going to be the cliche. It's Christopher Nolan, is my favorite all time. And
can you mention some of the movies? Because non-movie buffs may not know. Can you mention a couple of his famous titles?
Oh yeah, so one thing is I think most famous is The Dark Knight, the great acting by Heath Ledger as Joker. I think that's my all-time favorite movie also Inception, like I think we mentioned it, how Ankit put this thought in my mind. That's exactly that movie is something else. The Inception is I don't even know how someone can think of such a thing. And also I think Oppenheimer, which won the Oscar recently, which was a beautiful movie. I think it's a amazing movie, but I know it won an Oscar for Christopher Nolan, the first Oscar. But I think there are other movies that he deserved Oscar, because Oppenheimer is good, but man, movies like Inception, movies like Interstellar, Dark Knight, these are something else. I think this is when I think when the director loses himself in his art, or any artist loses himself in his art, something else comes out that cannot be expressed in words. So I think these are movies that truly were. I think Nolan just dissolved himself in whatever he was doing. So Christopher Nolan definitely, and also Stanley Kubrick. I don't know if people know him. So actually, I know people talk about Interstellar. I think it got released recently also. Here they have re-released it, and it's creating a huge buzz around the cinephiles. But before that, I think even Nolan mentioned it. I guess I'm not sure. I do not want to get myself caught saying that, oh, this did not happen. I think so. I'm not sure that Nolan was inspired by Stanley Kubrick's a movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that's probably the best space movie that I've seen. That is sci-fi, space, whatever you want to call it. Or sci-fi is the best word, I guess. So 2001: Space Odyssey, and he did a movie called Shining, where Jack Nicholson gave one wonderful performance. It's a little supernatural kind of movie. So Stanley Kubrick, and I would say here in our Indian genre, or the genre of Bharat, there is this one director called Vishal Bhardwaj. I think he's an exceptional director. He's so good. There's this one movie of his called Haider, which is probably one of the best works of art that I've seen. Is really damn good if people want to have consume Indian content. So Vishal Bhardwaj is a wonderful director to start with for really good movies. And I can never pronounce his name. Dennis Villeneuve, whatever that guy. He has directed this Dune, this part 1 and part 2. It's a very complicated name. I can't get his name. It's in French. I don't know what it is. So that one director, Dennis, and it starts with V, and it's a complicated name. So yeah, these are I think some of my favorite directors. There's one more, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think these are the directors that come on top of my head, I guess, at the top of
okay. Denis Villeneuve. Okay, yeah, it's a French movie.
Yeah.
A French
Yeah.
person, sorry. Or Canadian, I
Yeah.
don't know. Or Belgium. Please, nobody shoot me.
Yeah, could be.
I don't know. I just looked it up right now on my phone.
Yeah.
Denis Villeneuve. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll get trounced in some obscure movie forum. We'll get crucified.
Forum, yeah, I know.
Favorite color?
Black.
Black, all right. Seaside or mountains?
Mountains, hands down.
Roti
Any
or,
day, mountains.
Roti or rice?
Rice.
Pakka South Indian.
If
Yes.
I said roti and dosa, would have been different.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Wait. Idli or dosa?
Dosa. Any day,
Right.
hands down.
Desi food or foreign food?
Desi. Any day.
Yes, of course.
I think Indians mastered the art of culinary or food taste in the world. I know people have their maybe debatable, but to me, I think by far Indians mastered the art of food taste.
Yes, that's why you're almost swallowing your mic and we can't hear properly what you're saying. It went inside.
Oh, but I hope it was quite clear so far.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Just now when you were speaking about the food, the mic went
I'm going with it.
Yeah, I should have more rapid fire questions, but I think we covered a couple of important things. And as a last question, maybe that I have is, there are so many aspects to Sadhguru's mission, and all of us are just trying to play catch up unsuccessfully, mostly. What are some of does anything stand out for you that you feel this, I think, is the single most important contribution? So some people might know about Rally for Rivers, some people might know about Project Green Hands, some people may know about the Inner Engineering Program or One Drop of Spirituality to the World. Some people may or may not know that Sadhguru was one of the bastions in the creation and the propagation of 21st of June as International Day of Yoga by the United Nations. I mean, I don't know, we could be another 5 hours just talking about this aspect. So in all the initiatives that you are aware of by Sadhguru, is there anything that stands out in particular for you and that you think this really for me is something that touched me? May not be, not necessarily the most important, whatever that means, but something that touched you the most or most surprising.
Actually, sorry, the most?
Or even the most surprising. It can be anything outstanding in any way that you think.
Okay. On a personal level, I mean, with respect to social outreach programs, one thing that is really dear to my heart is the Kaveri Calling program, because of me being in Bangalore and Kaveri always being part of our lives. Even today, since birth, the water that I take bath in every day has been Kaveri water, and Kaveri has been so much in our consciousness as a culture of people from Karnataka, as Kannada people. So Kaveri Calling, I think, is a movement that is very dear to my heart, and I really hope, I know we have to make it happen, but I really hope we do make it happen, because it's so sad to see the state that Kaveri is in right at the moment. Even I remember when I was young, Sadhguru has given beautiful stories of how he used to be on the banks of Kaveri and all the crazy things I did. I was definitely not as crazy as him, but definitely as childhood, we have gone to the Kaveri banks so many times. It has been part of our lives in so many ways. It's such a beautiful river, and seeing that the state that it is in, the unfortunate thing is, in the culture of Sanatan Dharma, we always look at rivers as our mothers, or we treat it as goddess, but the kind of state that it is in today, it's pretty sad to see. So that is very dear to my heart. I really want this Kaveri Calling mission to succeed and see Kaveri, at least, if not back in how it was in its glory days, at least before I leave, contribute in some way in making it go back to at least 60 to 70% of how it was. I think then the next generation, it's up to them to take it forward. But in terms of the single most significant thing that I feel Sadhguru has done in this world, like you said, I think is just one drop of spirituality. I think because we cannot create a conscious planet without conscious human beings. His love, dedication, and just sheer devotion for human beings to grow. It is so beautiful to see that. I mean, there have been many masters. Okay. This is again disclaimer. I mean, someone cannot be. I mean, the problem is when you have a guru, you look at him as the greatest, right? You don't look at other masters as. I mean, all with respect to all masters. This is, I think, my personal biases. I've never seen someone of Sadhguru's caliber or the status to completely give himself towards creating a conscious planet in the way he does. It's quite remarkable, the devotion and the involvement that he shows. He can just close his eyes and be done with the world. To consciously make sure that he does this day in and day out and deal with all the nonsensical problems that even you and I are part of, and asking him constantly the same old nonsense every time, and still always be fully involved. I think that is his single most important contribution, where he's trying to make at least some part of us conscious and creating a conscious planet. I would say, in a way, also what is most important that I see that he has done is introducing Adi Yogi to the world in the way he has. I think that is the most important thing I feel he has done, is because even while I was young, I used to remember, like now, of course, like I said, right now, even if there's an ant, I will bow down to that ant. It's like that. But when I was young, I was very arrogant, like a regular teenager, right? So all this throughout our stories, right? We have great stories in our culture. So I always had a problem with every so-called great being or god. Like if there was Rama, I always had issues with him. If there was Krishna, I had always issues with him. Of course, that time I did not understand why they did certain things the way they did. But at that time, because I was very idealistic in my approach, I was like, okay, this is wrong. He did this, or that is wrong when he did that. But like I said, now with a better understanding, you can see, wow, what great beings they were. But at that time, being a idealistic young teenager, actually had your issues with certain things. But Shiva or Adi Yogi, that time I did not know that Shiva is also called as Adi Yogi. He was one concept or one god or one divine entity, whatever you want to call it. Again, like all these are just names, right? Where I just couldn't find a single fault in him, because he was everything and nothing at the same time. And when Sadhguru then got in this concept, I wouldn't say concept, but when he brought in Adi Yogi the way he did, where he represents the human aspiration to reach the ultimate. The human beings need to realize that whatever they're doing, they are right now doing it unconsciously, but ultimately everybody wants to expand limitlessly. That is what every human being aspires for. And Adi Yogi is a representation of that. So creating these spaces where Adi Yogi is the symbol, I think is the biggest contribution, where he's telling the world, or he's kind of like calling the world, or what do you say, creating a kind of like a marketing campaign in a way, not in the negative sense, of utilizing a symbol of Adi Yogi, wherein it makes people realize that the single most important thing is to expand limitlessly, not in installments. And that's what Adi Yogi represents. And I think that is the biggest contribution that I see Sadhguru has given to the world.
Well, I cannot think of a better way to conclude this podcast. If people want to reach out to you for classes in Bengaluru, perhaps we can weave your contact details into the video, and also I'll put them in the description of the video if you wish to, or whichever way you prefer people to contact you, and including social media handles, etc., etc. And yeah, it's been a real treat for me listening to your stories, which most of them were quite new for me as well as for probably some of the viewers. And I hope everyone watching this was able to take away something, or at least catch a spark of the enthusiasm and the involvement that you've displayed in so many areas of life. And wish you well on your journey, brother. Good continuation, and the same to all of you watching at home or wherever you may be in the world, and whenever you may be watching this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francesco.